All right, today's lesson we are looking at multiplying fractions, and we'll also look at dividing fractions. So what you'll notice with these two operations is we do not need to find a common denominator. So common denominators are only for adding and subtracting fractions. All right, the first rule here when multiplying fractions, it says to attempt to find a common factor in the numerator and in the denominator and try to reduce. Therefore, you're not working with very large numbers. And then you can multiply the remaining numerators together and the remaining denominators together, and that'll make more sense when we do this example. So one way, there's a couple ways you can do multiplying. So the first way, which is being explained in the rule above here, is to reduce before multiplying. All right, and we use the diagonal reducing method. So here 5 over 12 cannot be reduced. 14 over 25 cannot be reduced, but we can reduce diagonally. All right, so we would cross out the 5 and the 25, and we can reduce them both by dividing by 5. So 5 divided by 5 here leaves me with 1. 25 divided by 5 leaves me with 5. Okay, and then these two can also be reduced. The 12 and the 14 are both divisible by 2. So 14 divided by 2, that leaves me with 7. 12 divided by 2 leaves me with 6. So now our fraction would look like this. 1 over 6 times 7 over 5, which is, we multiply straight across, multiply your numerators together. So 1 times 7 is 7, and then 6 times 5 is 30. All right, so our final answer is 7 over 30. Now, some students don't like to do that method of reducing first. That's fine. The other method is go ahead and just multiply. So we have 5 over 12 times 14 over 25. So if we just multiplied our numerators together, 5 times 14, which is 70, and then 12 times 25, which is 300. And then you would reduce that further. And so 70 over 30, you would reduce that to 7 over 30. All right, so next example, I'm just going to rewrite it because it's kind of small and it's written slanted, the examples. So we have negative 10 over 18 times 15 over 20. So again, let's reduce before continuing here. So you can reduce diagonally if you want. You can reduce the fraction as is, but just reduce. I'm going to reduce these two. So 18 divided by 3, I can reduce by, this gives me 6. This will give me 5. And then here, I'll divide by 10. Negative 10 divided by 10, that'll leave me with negative 1. And then 20 divided by 10, that leaves me with 2. So now I've reduced my fraction, so it looks like this. 1 over 6 times 5 over 2, which gives me negative 5 over 12 as the final answer. If you didn't reduce beforehand and you just multiplied, you will have those larger numbers and you just have to reduce at the end. All right, so we have two examples for our students to try. So we have negative 4 over 5 times, that's a 7 over 12. So to reduce this, I can reduce diagonally the 4 and 12. So I'm just going to cross those off. So negative 4 divided by 4 gives me negative 1. 12 divided by 4 gives me the 3. Then to rewrite this, I get negative 1 over 5 times 7 over 3, which gives me negative 7 over 15. So negative 1 times 7 is negative 7, and then 5 times 3 is 15. All right, here we have negative 18, and then it's being multiplied by 4 over 9. Some of you might have shown that this is over 1, just to show that like a whole number is always over 1. Then we can go ahead and reduce. Negative 18 and 9 can be reduced by dividing by 9. That leaves me with negative 2 here and then a 1 here. Okay, now we can just rewrite this out. So it's negative 2 over 1 times 4 over 1, which gives me negative 8 over 1, which is just equal to negative 8. All right, so next we are looking at dividing fractions. So when we're dividing fractions, there's a new term, if you haven't heard of it before, you would have heard it with me in grade 8. It's called a reciprocal. You have to write the reciprocal of the divisor. That's your second fraction. And then you would proceed as you would in multiplication. So this first slide here, we're just looking at what is a reciprocal. So for example, if we have a fraction 3 over 4, its reciprocal is 4 over 3. So all we've done is flipped the fraction. In this image here, the reciprocal of 8 is 1 over 8. The reciprocal of 1 over 8 is 8. So for example, if I had 1 over 3, its reciprocal would become 3 over 1 or just 3. All right, if I had the number 25, which is the same thing as 25 over 1, its reciprocal would become 1 over 25. That's what reciprocal is. So you do need to know how to do what you do need to know what a reciprocal is to be able to do division. So 4 over 5 is being divided by 2 over 3. So we have to take our second fraction, which is this one. I'm just going to put it in a box. And we have to write its reciprocal. And then you proceed as multiplying. All right, so we leave 4 over 5 alone. 4 over 5 is kept the same. And then the rule is you multiply by the reciprocal, by 3 over 2. And then we proceed as normal. I'll get to your question in a sec there. Do any reducing you can. So here I can reduce the 4 and 2. So I end up with 2 and 1, which leaves me, when I multiply, 2 times 3 is now 6. 5 times 1 is 5. So we end up with 6 over 5. And then because it's an improper fraction, I can write it as a mixed fraction, which is 1 and 1/5. So in example 2, we have mixed fractions for both. So we're going to change those to improper fractions and then continue with our rules for division. All right, so 3 times 2 is 6, plus 1 is 7. So that is 7 over 2, and it's being divided by here. Negative 2 times 7 is negative, or just leave it as 14 plus 1. So it's negative 15 15 over 7. So that's what it looks like written improper. Now we're going to go ahead and take the reciprocal of our divisor or our second fraction. So that becomes 7 over 2, and now multiplied by negative 7 over 15. And I don't think we can do any reducing here. No, we cannot. So just multiply our numerators. 7 times negative 7, that's negative 49. And then 2 times 15, which is 30. All right, so lastly, because this is improper, I'm just going to write it as a mixed fraction. So we end up with negative 1 over 30 and 19. 1 times 30 is 30, plus the 19 to give me that 49. Okay, so let's go through these last two examples. So first one, we have 4 over 7 divided by 1 over 2. So we have to multiply the reciprocal of the divisor. So that becomes 2 over 1. All right, and then multiply your numerators together. 4 times 2 gives me 8. Multiply the denominators together. 7 times 1 is 7. So I have 8 over 7, but that's improper. So I'm going to write it as a mixed, which will be 1 and 1/7. All right, our second example here, we have a negative 3 over 4. So we keep that one. Excuse me. Keep our first fraction the same. Then we have divided by 9. So we have to take the reciprocal of 9. Then we can multiply. Excuse me. 1 over 9 is what we get here. Multiply straight across. So we end up with negative 3 times 1, which is negative 3. 4 times 9 is 36. I could have reduced here. I just forgot to reduce. But I'll reduce here at the end to give me negative 1 over 12. And that's the final answer.